It is March, and that means it is Pinecone Pathways time. We're out of the studio, and we are at Starworks, where it all happens. We're here with Joe Grant, the director of glass, next on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst Southern Pines Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And welcome to Paradise in the Pines. We are here right in the studio. We're actually at Starworks, which is in Star, North Carolina, a little bit outside of Moore County, but a great regional partnership for tourism. Our Pinecone Pathways Program gets started here in just a couple weeks. And Joe Grant is with us. He's the director of glass at Starworks here in Star. And Joe, great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you too, Phil.
I was talking to you before we got started, and I was like, you guys have really outdone yourself. This is the third year of the Pinecone Pathways Program, and we've got a couple of them here. And you guys have really done a great job all the time, all the 3 years. But this year, the pine cones look amazing. I mean, you got the solids, the speckleds. Talk about the process this year.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And I mean, that's one of the things that was most engaging to me about the beginning of this project was thinking about an object as a design.
Yeah.
So you guys came to us with this project, and the idea of creating something that was sort of native to the area,
right,
and trying to find something that really had like a local connection, I thought was really cool. And so the colorways, you know, when we're working with glass, it's the same chemistry that you would add to paints or to ceramic glazes. So like a cobalt gives you a blue, selenium gives you yellow, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the joys for us in the glass studios, we get to play with all those chemistries and see how they interact. And so through doing this over a couple of years, we've got to refine what colors we add to the glass to kind of give you the palette that you see in the end.
When we came to you 3 years ago, we were like, hey, we got this idea, you know, the scavenger hunt. We were inspired by some things we saw around the country, Jekyll Island, Block Island, Rhode Island. And we're like, we got to come up with a mold. So talk about how you came up with the mold. Obviously, we wanted kind of like a pine cone theme. And there were a couple of different tests you guys did. And finally, we landed on what these look like currently, what they look like in year one. But talk about that whole process when we came to you and said, hey, we got to create a mold. And how did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, initially, so glass is such a magical material. I call it a transformative material because you can make it look like anything. You can make it look like wood or stone, depending on how you treat the surface. So first I tried to actually make some sculpted by hand. And if you can think about, you think about a pine cone, it's a really detailed.
By hand with glass. So,
so starting with a mass and using a tool to make lines or part of a mold to make lines, and then pick each one or work additively.
And all of them would be truly unique. They'd be totally different.
Yeah. But what we found out really quickly is that it's so labor intensive.
Yeah.
It makes it too difficult to make the quantities that we wanted. So then we started talking about a mold that you can blow into. And that's another magical thing about glass. It's kind of a plastic. You can, when it's in its liquid state, it really can take on the impression of a mold, even up to sort of fingerprint detail, depending on how you do it. So the first thought was, okay, how do we get a bubble inside of this two-part mold that separates? Because obviously you have to take the glass out of the mold once you've blown into it.
Right.
And so that became a cool sort of problem to work through. And so I contacted a friend that I work with pretty regularly doing computer-aided design. And that's where we started. We did some research. We found images of native pine cones from the area and sort of used those as inspiration and turned them into a 3D model first. And then that gave us a matrix from which we could make a carved graphite mold that allows us to literally drop a molten bubble on the inside and blow, and it takes on that whole texture.
Talk about you got to that process for year one. And then what was it like getting to year two and going, okay, this is what we can do to maybe improve them? I mean, because like I said, these are the best I've seen. I mean, you guys have done an awesome job, but has there been a little bit of tweaking with each year?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, part of it's just experience.
Yeah.
The more you go through a process, the better you get at actually executing. So there was a refinement to just how to make the form come out of the mold just right, how heavy it weighs, how to add that hook at the top so that they're perfectly
Yep.
made so that they can hang nicely.
And great for the tag that people find when they can
Exactly,
scan the
that too.
QR codes.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's a marketing thing too.
Yeah, and then yes, I mean, I'm kind of going back to the color, experimenting,
Yeah.
and then getting feedback. You know, hearing from you guys, hearing from the public about what looks the coolest, whether it's, you know, imitating life. So sometimes you can make colors that sort of match what you see in the real world versus some of these, you know, colors that are a little bit more gem tones or catch light in a different way. And so, yeah, I'd say over the last couple years, we've been able to kind of build on the year before and make them a little better each time.
I think people would ask, I mean, because you've got, you know, a solid one here, you've got a speckled one here. I mean, how do you add the color? And then second question would be, how do you do them with speckles? I mean, they're spectacular.
Yeah. You know, in order to make the object in the first place, we have to walk up to a furnace, and the furnace is sitting at about 2,100 degrees.
Wow.
We take a long steel pipe called a blowpipe and dip the tip of that down into the molten glass that's inside the furnace. And we do what's called gathering. So you actually turn the pipe. The glass is about the viscosity of honey when it's at that temperature. And so you have to keep turning. You can pull it out from the furnace. And when it's that hot, we have chips of pre-made colored glass that we can lay out on a table, essentially a big metal table. And when the glass is 2,000 degrees, you can just roll it in those chips of colored glass, and they stick to the surface, and then we can melt them in so they homogenize with the rest of that body material. And so that's what gives us the range. You can either do that with one color, and you can roll in it a few times to sort of saturate it and give it depth, or you can combinations and stuff.
I know as an organization, as a tourism marketing organization, we get a lot of satisfaction out of this program because we see the people that find them and they're ecstatic. Or people that have never found them that say they've lost 30, 40 pounds because they went out on our trails and hiked and tried to find them. I think we derive a lot of great stories and a lot of really cool things happening because of this program. People always look forward to it, but what sort of satisfaction you get when you see those things on social media and people are so excited to find these, or they come here and they want to buy them, which you cannot do.
We get so many requests for people looking to come here because they know that we make them. It's a really satisfying process to think about the idea of art connecting people and nature in that way, to motivate people through a craft, you know, something that, you know, I've worked with glass for 24 years. And to me, that's really where the beauty of art lies, is making connections with people. And for this particular project to have that kind of engagement where people are seeking it out. You know, a lot of times, you know, be it a museum or a gallery, there's not a huge public. There's a specific niche of people that are interested and engaged with artwork. And I feel like this project really broadens that range in kind of a cool way. So that's what really makes it exciting to me to hear these stories.
We're here on Paradise in the Pines, and we're at Starworks in Star, North Carolina with Joe, who is the director of glass. You've been in it 24 years. Talk about how you got started and what the process has been through your career.
Oh, man. So, 25 years ago, I was an undergraduate student at the University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois. That's where I grew up. That's my hometown. And I had started in the art department, expecting to be in industrial design or architecture. That was kind of the path I was headed in. Little did I know that sort of problem solving would help me with projects like this later. But you weren't supposed to be able to take a glassblowing class until you were a sophomore. But I had a drawing teacher when I was a freshman, and he just offered it to the class. Is anybody interested in taking glassblowing? And to me, that was the whole point of being in college, was to try things that I might never get to try anywhere else. So I said, sign me up. He introduced me to the head of the department. So these guys were some of my first mentors in glass. Bill Carlson was the head of the department. And so he introduced me to Bill. And when Bill found out I was from Champaign and that I would be there over the summers, something went off in his head, and he was like, oh, I can hire this guy to help me make my artwork. So that was like a really pivotal thing. The first time I walked into a glass blowing studio, I was just struck with the teamwork, the camaraderie. It was almost like being in a band. You know, when you work in the hot shop, you've got to be in sync with one another. It's like you know the same music. You have your own style, but
And a rhythm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you can bring those different styles together and make something really beautiful and amazing out of them. And then walking up to that furnace that's sitting at 2,000 degrees and being asked to ignore your instincts to run away.
Right.
And
It's
instead,
hot.
like, let's reach in
Yeah.
to that and get something out of it.
Yeah.
That was a pretty exciting prospect. And then just the magic of the material. So once you remove the glass from the furnace, you have a really short amount of time to work with it until it cools off and it becomes rigid and solid. And so when you're working with it in the studio, it's constantly going between those two phases of being a liquid and being a solid.
Yeah.
And I think something about that, to me, was alchemical. It was magical and really drew me in and made me want to keep experimenting and learning with it.
Obviously, you're a seasoned professional, but when you got started, did you do some things you're like, oh my God, what does this look like? Did you have some epic failures?
It is definitely, you know, your parents get a lot of your first objects. So
because you're going to get the best feedback from them no matter what.
Well, they'll take it anyway.
Right.
But to go back and see some of those first, even little cylinders that you make that are like the lip is a half-inch thick, or it's
or you're really
interesting.
proud of it back then, and you look back at it now and you go, man.
Oh. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, did my undergraduate there, and then after that, moved to the East Coast, lived in Providence and Connecticut, working for various independent studios before going back to graduate school at the Virginia Commonwealth University.
Okay, in Richmond, yeah.
In Richmond. And then eventually now I've been in North Carolina for, 15 or more years at this
And you've been
point.
here how long?
10 years.
Okay.
I've been running the studio here for 10 years.
So Starworks, it's a 501c3 located in Star, North Carolina. You inspire creativity through art, entrepreneurship, and education. Talk about what that means.
Yeah. Oh, we are such a unique blend of artists from all over the country. Sometimes other countries come to do residencies. So we have residency programs. We have internship programs. And all of this is not just in glass. We also have ceramics and metals programs, as well as huge gallery spaces, public events. We have a fully functioning cafe and tap room in the front. So this is it's a great place for people to come and have experiences with the arts. I would say, in addition to those residencies, internship programs, the people that work here on an everyday basis are also artists.
Yeah.
So we've built this like really interesting community that's a blend of, those experiences, as well as educational workshops, things that the public can come in to do, and like you said, entrepreneurial endeavors for economic development in this rural area.
You've been here 10 years. Talk about the growth of this facility and where it was and where it is today, because and the space, and this was a few months ago, you gave our team an entire tour of this facility.
Yeah.
It is a massive facility.
Yeah.
Talk about how big it is and how it's come over the last 10 years you've been here.
Yeah. So this is 190,000 square feet of space. In its first incarnation, the very original structure that's now our schoolhouse gallery, it was a boarding school that was built about 100 years ago. And
Wow.
so it was all the surrounding communities. Children came here and they lived on campus. They did their education here on campus. They had a self-sustaining agricultural arts department, so everybody was raising livestock and growing crops, and so it fed the school as well. So you can still see that 100-year-old brickwork, but then in I think the early 1920s, it was purchased by the Russell brothers and became the first hosiery mill expansion happen to the building. So as
This was a big textile area back in the day.
That's right. That's right. And so the building itself physically started expanding outward from that original schoolhouse. And then eventually, in its last incarnation before we took over, it was a Fruit of the Loom sock factory. And so they had expanded for textile making in every direction, as well as divided rooms vertically to fit in extra floors. So there could be more people, more machines, more productivity over time. So it is a very big space. When we took it over, and this started before I was even here, so our executive director, Nancy Gatovi, who's really the brainchild of this original operation, was gifted the building, took it over. You know, we've had to go through lots of repairs. It's an old building. Yeah. It's a huge building. So over time, it's been a slow process of fixing things that needed help, as well as adding infrastructure to make all of those creative spaces function properly. Yeah. So adding equipment, adding studios, but also places for us to literally just sit and think and build and create outside of our hot shop and ceramics studios and stuff too. So it's been a slow build, and I have had the pleasure of just kind of watching it get bigger and better the whole time. Yeah.
You talk about the different mediums that are here, whether it be glass, metal. Do you ever do any collaborations or crossing over? I mean, how does that work between the artists here?
Yeah, both in-house, you know, our staff that are artists have worked together collaboratively, as well as artists that come from other places. That's part of what's so exciting about a residency, is that you're living in place, you meet people, and you get to react to the environment you're in. So I've seen it happen lots of times where there's an artist down in ceramics and an artist in glass that meet. We host pretty regularly. We have slide talks here where our artists will do presentations about our work. And so a lot of times you'll see people look at each other's slideshow, meet afterwards, and say, oh man, I really love what you're doing there. This is what I do. Maybe we could find some way to put those things together. I've also worked pretty closely with both the metals and ceramics heads. There's a piece in this exhibition right now that I worked with Mac Metz together to make some beautiful work. And that's one of the great things here. You know, I think when I first arrived, you look around at the space first, and then when you meet the people and what their expertise is, you start to realize that anything's possible. Yeah. You can make anything that comes to your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a different room we'll talk about, but where we're sitting here recording this podcast, what is this room here?
Yeah, this is sort of our large exhibition hall. So there's the main gallery that you walk into is sort of our retail gallery space that has work from artists in the building as well as all around the state. You can find all the different materials. And then this space is a much larger space that we can actually use more like a rotating exhibition sculpture space. So for 2 or 3 times a year, we'll set up an exhibition. It also becomes the space that we have some of our biggest fundraisers in, like our glass pumpkin patch and our holiday sale at the end of the year, where we have all of our ornaments and everything. And so you can, when you visit Starworks any day during the week, you might see a new exhibition anytime you walk in here.
And you said when you're open how many days, what hours and days you're open?
Yeah, we're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5. And even the glass studio, Saturday, it's not guaranteed that anybody will be working in there. But, you know, Monday through Friday, you can come in and watch us blowing glass pretty much any time. You know, if we're making something, you're welcome to come in and see it.
I was going to say, because we got a chance to do that, just putting together a story for the Pinecone Pathways Program and watching you do your work. It's really impressive, and it is warm in there. Yeah. We don't get nearly as close to the ovens or the furnaces as you do, but it's really cool to see. But you mentioned the pumpkin patch thing, and I think people can come and actually do that, right?
Oh, yeah. So, you know, we have lots of experience-based workshops where you can actually come and work alongside our staff members. We call them make your owns. So make your own pumpkin, make your own ornament, make your own paperweight. Some of these happen in the metals and ceramics departments as well. And if you go to our website, you know, starworksnc.org, you can click on education and kind of find a listing of all those different classes. We're really fortunate. One of our biggest renovation projects recently has been renovating what used to be the boiler building. We've turned it into 10 standalone apartment spaces, which will help house our resident artists and our interns, but it's also going to allow us to host longer, more intensive professional level workshops. So right now, just because of the logistics of food and a place to stay, it's been difficult to schedule classes that are more than one standalone day, right? And this will give us a place to put students and instructors where we could potentially put together a week or a 2-week long class in glass or ceramics or something. So that's a really cool thing that's developing this year.
It was interesting. I think the last time we were here and you gave us a tour, we met, I know one student was from Eastern Europe. So I think it's kind of cool. Talk about the residency program. I'm thinking about Weymouth, the writers in residency, but you have the artists in residency here. Talk about that program and the way it gives access to people from around the world to be able to come here and explore. Yeah.
Oh man, it's really pretty significant when you talk to artists that have done a residency here. You start to realize the kind of impact it has on their chances to make a body of work. So we've got the residency and internship program essentially are application-based. So applications come in at the end of September each year, and a review panel sits down to go through all of these applications. And we get applications, literally from around the world. Yeah. And so it becomes about the body of work that they make, the images, the concept for what they want to try to accomplish while they're here. And it takes a while. It's difficult to narrow down because, you can't give one to everybody. Yeah. And so we end up having, people from all over the place come to this area to make, really international level artwork, which I think is one of the great things we're able to do.
Obviously, you're open to the public, and you have some really cool highlight or headliner events that you have. I think Firefest is probably arguably the biggest thing you do. Talk about Firefest and how much you guys enjoy doing that.
Yeah. Firefest is probably my favorite weekend of the year. It's a celebration of artwork made from fire in ceramics, clay, and glass. So we get to invite really top-tier artists in each of those materials to come. They actually come to Starworks for at least a week, sort of leading up to the public event. This year, the event is the first weekend in April. It's April 4th and 5th. And so they kind of do a short residency where they get to work with our team, and really we get to hone in on the process and how they make their work, as well as produce things that will be in the exhibition during Firefest. Right. And then the public event, the Friday night, Saturday, it's full of workshops, hands-on workshops that you can do in each of those materials, demonstrations by the artists, and slide presentations, as well as food trucks, music. It's a full-on festival. And the finale happens on Saturday night at the kind of crux of everything coming together. And in the evening, around 5 o'clock, we start with a big demonstration in the glass studio. And then as that's winding down, we move outside for an iron pour. And then the sort of final unveiling, the ceramic artist works with a team here almost a month in advance, actually, to construct these 6 or 7 foot tall clay sculptures that get fired in a portable kiln outside. And so the very final event is actually the unveiling of the fire sculpture when it's at like 2,400 degrees. We open up this beautiful wood-fired sculpture while it's on, full display.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. You mentioned clay, and Seagrove is so close by.
Mm-hmm.
I know we were here before, and you took us, I think it was downstairs, there was a lot of clay that some of the potters come in and purchase that from you.
Yeah.
Talk about your relationship with Seagrove and the potters there.
Sure. Yeah. We are, in addition to a residency and internship program, we actually are clay manufacturers. So the head of the ceramics department, Takaro Shibata, started, I don't know how long ago now. It's probably been, longer than I've been here. So 20 years, maybe 15 years, developing clay bodies that are made all with materials sourced within about 40 miles of the building. So they're all local clays. They're artisanal clays. They're exceptional to work with. Of course, I'm not a ceramicist, so I can't speak to like the ins and outs of all those materials exactly. But that relationship sort of started because Seagrove is so close,
Mm-hmm.
and a reason that a lot of ceramicists are in the area is because there's great earth materials for making clay. That's partially what started the generational aspect of potters in the Seagrove area.
Yeah.
And so we knew as a business model, and also just creating something that people needed and wanted, that we could build this sort of relationship with the surrounding ceramicists by making clay bodies that they would directly want to use.
You talked about the writers and I would say writers, the artist in residency program. Talk about what's next for Starworks. You've been here 10 years. Obviously, you want to keep building on the success, the residency program, and building those apartments. I know it was a goal of you guys to do.
Big part of what's happening right now. Yep.
What are the future goals for Starworks?
Yeah, I mean, I think putting into place those sort of workshops that are really professional level, little longer, higher intensity length classes is like, it's going to take some time for the logistics and all those things to come together. So that's one of the sort of future but ongoing immediate goals. I think down the road, I think growing our exhibition space and really continuing to have top tier exhibitions that draw people in to come see is another really important aspect of what we're doing, and just trying to continue engaging both the local and national community in the arts is sort of our long-term mission.
What are you working on right now other than pine cones?
That's a great question. So I have a series of sculptures that combine textiles and glass. I actually just recently got a artist support grant from the Greensboro Arts Council, and
Great,
that has allowed me.
congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, that's allowing me to experiment with some new lighting. So these textiles have glass woven in and out of the different warp and weft of them. And then they're placed into these light boxes. So they're lit from behind in this really beautiful glow. And so I'm getting to experiment on some new pieces with different light sources that sort of make beautiful sculptures that hang on the wall.
And people that find the pine cones, it's amazing. We see that people do put them over light boxes or hang them in these really cool. What have you seen that has intrigued you from this program?
I mean, I've heard one story about someone coming. I think they traveled, from across the country to go out on the trails and try to find these pine cones. And to me, that was like, oh, I had no idea the reach that this was going to have. So I think that's what's most fascinating to me, that it's become such a draw that people from all over, from very far away are coming to seek them out. So
I think I know the gentleman you're talking about because I happened to be in the office on a Saturday. I think his last name was Boyd. He was from Ohio. And so he was getting ready to get back on the road with his family. It was the second time he'd come to the area. First time he couldn't find one.
Right.
Came back a few weeks later. It's like, I've got to find one. So he calls me. I answer the phone. He's like, is there still a pine cone? Because we have a Facebook page, and then Matthew Greiner does a great job with the secondary page. Is this pine cone still on this trail? And I said, you know what? I really don't know. I mean, I don't see it on the page, but doesn't mean some people don't register them. We want them all to register so they can win a grand prize. And so he texted me it was raining, and he texted me about an hour later, and they were literally just getting ready to give up and go back to Ohio when he found one.
Oh man,
and
that's
so
great.
that's part of the allure and part of the satisfaction we get. Being able to do this and to partner with you for this program, because it has been it's gone viral. I mean, it absolutely has. And probably we say it's the largest scavenger hunt in North Carolina. It's easily the most viral, I think. People we've met from at least 6 different states. So your partnership is invaluable, and we appreciate everything you do. I know we didn't know each other. I work in Moore County. You work in Montgomery County. This is part of what we call regional tourism. Seagrove is not in the heart. It's in Randolph County. But I mean, it does have Potter's Beno, and the most prolific one arguably lives in Moore County. Rockingham, the Speedway, they got racing coming back. So, supporting that, because a lot of people fill those hotel rooms that come go to the races in Rockingham. So we appreciate your partnership, and we look forward to it. I will tell you, with I can't remember the name. It's like 20 letters for the 250th anniversary of America next year. So we've got some great ideas for doing something really special for the 250th of the country. And so I think I might have mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
And we don't want to spill the beans yet, but stay tuned because we got a cool program for the 250th anniversary of the United States. Joe Grant, Director of Glass, tell us one more time how we get in touch with you at Starworks, your website, and anything you want to say about the organization.
Yeah, our website is starworksnc.org. If you go there, you can find all of the information about our workshops, our events, anything coming up. And if you have questions, we also do private tours, private demonstrations, so you can always reach out to us about scheduling those. So yeah, come on through for any of our events. Check out our cafe, tap room, and all of our exhibition spaces. Thanks so much, Phil.
Absolutely.
This has been a great partnership for us. I mean,
thank you.
Having a space like this that's kind of in a rural location just outside of these big cities, these partnerships mean a lot to us too.
Absolutely. And, Firefest is April the 3rd. Those events are spectacular, but I love coming here sometimes on a Saturday, just kind of hang out, go to the tap room, have a beer, have a sandwich, check out the artwork. I mean, it's a cool place to come. Great vibe.
Hey, and if you can come back Thursday, we have hot glass cold beer with our current resident artist. And that happens the second Thursday of every month. So.
Good point. Great reminder, Joe. Thanks again. Appreciate your partnership. If you want to learn more about tourism in Moore County, go to homeofgolf.com. If you want to check out these pine cones and go to our landing page, just Google Pinecone Pathways Moore County. You'll easily find it. If you want to watch our videos, watch our YouTube channel, Home of American Golf. And this has been Paradise in the Pines. We'll see you next time. And welcome to Paradise of the Pines. In this episode, we have Dr. Savannah Gardner. Dr. Savannah Gardner, you just moved here from Pinehurst not too long ago. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's truly an honor, again, being kind of new here and then being able to communicate with y'all and share what I do and what I love. I'm truly honored to sit here and be a part of it.
One of our colleagues met you at a golf networking event in Aberdeen.